The next technique we're going to look at are bending and adding vibrato. Okay, so bending a string obviously is self-explanatory. And vibrato, they're very similar. When you're practicing, this is a really good time for me to address this. I want you to turn your guitar off, unplug it if need be. When you're practicing bends and vibrato, to really get connected with your guitar and develop the sustain and the control you need, if you'll practice your guitar unplugged, it's going to be, it'll make you a whole lot more honest, and I think you'll get further faster. And I'll show you why as we get into this. But when you bend a string, I want you to make sure that you're bending in pitch. There's nothing worse than somebody that bends and doesn't quite get to the note, unless that's what you're truly meaning to do. You can use all of the emotive power that you can muster up in your bends. You can add vibrato at the end. So in taking a bend, let's do a little exercise. You've got a whole step bend where the note is going to bend up to this note. Okay, now you want to gauge on your guitar, depending on what gauge strings you use. I use 10 to 46s. When I'm on my acoustic guitar, I'll bend some, but that's where I really develop like these little half, step slides. So acoustic's kind of hard, although an acoustic guitar is a great instrument to practice a lot of these techniques because it helps to build strength. But when you're bending on your electric, say you play a Les Paul, a Strat, some people play multiple guitars, you're going to want to practice this on the different types of guitars that you play, because you're going to really want to develop a feel for a whole step bend and a half step bend. So you can do an exercise. Do you really get that in your DNA? Then a half step bend. Also, you're going to want to bend on these strings as well. So that's a nice little exercise that'll really help you move forward, build the strength that you need, and it'll really kind of chew up your fingers a little bit if this is new to you. So balance out the different techniques so you don't get sore. A lot of times, some of these techniques, if they're new, they're really going to work different, areas of the pads of your fingers, especially some of that right hand stuff. So when you're bending, you can do a rake. And when you get to the end of the note, you can put a little vibrato. A rake is a real nice thing to hit before you. Notice how my first finger's always covering. Double stop. Okay, so let's look at vibrato, not just at the end of a bend, but vibrato in general. Also, I like to put a rake before. When I do vibrato, I let the edge of the neck of the guitar rest right between where my finger meets the palm of my hand, this knuckle right here. I just let it rest there. And I twist like this. Here, when I'm doing it with my third finger, I let the guitar sit and kind of cup in the neck. And I'm literally kind of pulling on the guitar. This is more of a leverage. This is a little bit more of a pull. And then once I get, if I'm playing with my third finger, the guitar will rest a little bit further down in the cup of this little area here. And if I'm playing with my first finger, it'll rest a little bit more towards the knuckle, okay? Right in there, as opposed to right down here. So third finger down here, when I'm using vibrato. If I'm using vibrato with my first finger, it'll be more on that knuckle. Now I'm going to play just a little bit and show you how vibrato can bring to life what we've already learned. See how I'm bending that string down instead of up? If you're going to do like an official bend, you always want to bend up, but pulling a note off, bending it down slightly, is also a form of glue. Vibrato or vibrato. Vibrato doesn't have to be like this. It can. There can be something in between a bend and a vibrato. That's why I group these together. This is a good area of the neck of the guitar to just sit and really start working with these. Again, I've got this muted technique going on, so I'm being percussive in this instance. I'm playing a single note, two notes, second and third strings together, single notes. Some blues players, Roy Buchanan, who's my favorite, when you really get going, he'll like yank that string up and down and up and down and up and down. That's something that you can work with. Again, we'll look at that in implementation. But don't think of a bend just as that, because it can be a whole step, it can be a half step, it can be entered into with a rake, it can have vibrato, a slight bend and a pull off. Not like pull off, but you know, where you come off that note. And you can bend a note, then play it and release. Also, using your middle finger adds punctuation. Whenever you use your middle finger, you're going to get a more intense version of anything. I love using the middle finger to add punctuation. It makes whatever you're doing pop. Okay, so work with these. You know, make sure that you've got it in your DNA how to bend and pitch. Listen to what you're doing, and then get your vibrato down, and then begin to add that maybe in a practice routine where you really become mindful of implementing it. And then here, you can only bend up on your high string. There you go.